Okay, here we are. Hi, everybody. I don't know if anybody's on yet, but you guys will tell me when you get here. I know. And I'm sitting here. There we go. And oh, I forgot to mic us. This isn't going to help. What the heck? Okay. I was so excited about being here that I forgot the mics.
Does the phone pick it up anyway?
Yeah, it picks it up. But I just these mics are good, and I had to yell at the people that made them because I had one set and one of the mics wasn't working, and they sent me a new set. So this is good.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Wonder who it is.
Oh. Okay. Person watching, can you tell me if you can hear us?
Who is this?
I don't know. We'll find out.
Okay.
All right. Anyway, so here I am. I'm with Margaret Garcia. Hi.
Hi, Natalie.
Thanks for letting me be here. I'm so excited. Okay, so like I always start with people, I want to know, were you a creative kid?
I can't imagine not having been a creative kid. I mean,
were you? Compared to, and I hate comparing, but compared to like either siblings or cousins or friends.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't. Did they move in the same way that you did, like around anything around being creative?
No, I had obsessions with mud pies and shiny rocks and bugs. I mean, I'd eat pill bugs. There was play with the mud. There was like very tactile. I have a memory of sitting outside in the dirt, and my mother was washing clothes, and there were bubbles floating in the air with the dust, and there was an incinerator there, and it was very. I was sitting in the sunshine. I just had very vivid tactile, like I could smell the soap. You know, she had one of those old washing machines that you crank the clothes through the ringers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we were sitting out by an incinerator while she washed clothes, and she hung it out to dry. And you know, I think if you know, like I remember seeing that, looking at that, and thinking, this is so beautiful. You know, this is so beautiful.
Taking it in a whole different way.
Yeah, I think so. I think that when you appreciate that kind of beauty and you have that sensibility inside of you, you want to express how you feel about it. And I think that that's like the seed. You know, it's the seed of wanting to be creative because you appreciate the beauty that surrounds you. So it's like wanting to say, "Ooh," you know. An artistic expression is almost like that, and it's about maybe reining it in and channeling it through a skill.
That's an interesting thought.
Mm-hmm.
I never thought about it that way. That's really interesting.
Mm. Yeah.
I always thought about art being like, not that I want to control it, but I mean, I'm trying to control my materials to make it match what my vision is, you know? And so sometimes I think about being an artist and you're the biggest control freak in the world because you're trying to control your product in some way, you know, because you want it to match what you've got going on in your head. I don't know. Just
you know, I guess that what do they say is you know, when you copy something, it's the greatest form of flattery. Imitation is the greatest form of flattery, and I think that when you see beauty, you know, your heart wants to sort of imitate. This is what I see. This is what I see, and it's an impulse. You know, it's sort of an impulse to try and create the beauty that you see that's around you. You respond to it. It's like call and respond. So, you know, when you see something that's really beautiful and you are challenged with the idea of trying to imitate it, you know, sometimes it's as organic as a sound or a color or a line, and it's just comes out, Skill, skill is something that you work at.
Yeah, you can manufacture it.
You can manufacture it, but I think that there's too much, too much weight, too much. How should I say? People invest too much in this concept of talent.
I agree.
I think that we all have varying degrees of talent, perhaps depending on how many lives you've lived. you know and then this is the life in which you embrace that aspect of yourself where it'll manifest.
Yeah. Okay, so let me go back to the question about your childhood. Were you a drawer? Were you a painter? Were you like
I drew.
You drew?
And I like drawing portraits.
And so that happened
the
from when
first-
you were very young.
Very young. I had a nana that I had this woman who took care of me. She had braids, and she and I remember sitting there and just pencil drawing her, and she was the most patient person to sit there for me and let me draw her. And I had to be 8 or something like that, maybe 7, 8, 9. I don't know. I started drawing her. She, for me, it happened like this. My grandmother took me downtown LA.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day when all the people wore platform shoes and gloves and hats, and it was real, you had to dress up.
Fancy, yeah.
You didn't go downtown unless you were dressed up and wore lipstick. You had to wear something. And I remember getting on the bus with my grandmother and looking out the window and seeing all these different people going by. And I remember this Black woman, an elderly Black woman who looked very different from everybody else. And I sat there and I tried to project myself into what it would feel like to be her.
Now, did you think she was different because of the color of her skin, or was she even more different than that? She was just different.
She was different because she wasn't fancy to me.
Oh, okay.
She wasn't wearing lipstick. She didn't have platform shoes. She was an elderly senior woman. And as I looked at her and she looked around her, I sensed that she didn't care what anybody thought about her. And I like that. I really like that. And I thought, what does it feel like to be her? And I tried to like embrace that and look at that. And in some way that had to be my first portrait. I wasn't doing it with a pencil or with paint or with crayons or with anything. I was doing it with my sense of feeling, because I think that to really imitate what you see, you need to feel it.
You have to try it on almost.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I remember being real little when she did that. She would take me downtown, and I was always looking at people trying to do that. Trying to think about what does it feel like to be them. Like people have an expression. They put on an expression, and you embrace that expression, and it becomes so much easier to read that person, to know that person. Unlike maybe people who are unable to read the expression, I was like super sensitive to it.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's all ends, right?
Right.
Yeah.
You're wherever I
Wherever
am on
you
that
are.
spectrum. But I was really interested in that expression, and I could kind of feel when a person was kind of holding back, or putting on airs.
Right.
Or
had a little veil.
Or
of
being
some sort.
authentic, or being, I think I was very sensitive to that.
So I would gather then that, this ability that you have has supported what you do as an artist. It's almost like you can't do it without this sense that you have for you?
I think it's, for me, it's been a process of evolution. It's kind of like being an onion. This is what I was going to say before. You've got all these layers, right? And in one layer, it's about those feelings. And, maybe in another layer, it's about the likeness. It's about the environment. It's about the energy. It's about the mood the person's going through. It's about the colors on your palette because that's all you have, or the material that you're using. But I have always believed, because for me it's a spiritual quest,
Mm-hmm.
that when I do my best work, I'm not thinking about my hand-eye coordination. I'm not even thinking about the color. It's almost automatic. It's like, coughing or sneezing, it's just like, it's got to be that color. It's got to be that shape. It's got to be this distance. It's got to be that composition. You practice each and every single one of those aspects. You learn all these different materials, but in a state of grace, you don't even remember how you got there. You don't remember the time.
I mean, there's people that talk about this that would call this channeling.
Yeah.
Or just lining up with whatever it is that's guiding you in that moment, and you are just in it.
Yeah. There's nothing about it that's self-conscious. I remember joining a group of people and taking on the practice, of painting every Tuesday, every Wednesday from 6 to 10 or whatever. It was a scheduled time that I did that, and I remember my first endeavor there, how I felt somewhat self-conscious because, I'm not going to be as good as the rest of these people, and all that other stuff kind of came about.
I hate those things.
But, when you find your tribe and you find your posse and you find the people around you that support you and throw down the gauntlet and challenge you in those ways, and it's a dance. It's a way of socializing, and you don't become self-conscious about the process. You don't become self-conscious about, am I good enough, or am I talented, or can I make a living at it, or any of those things. Right. None of those things are first and foremost. What becomes first and foremost is exactly what you're doing right now. And I'm trying to get that angle of the nose or the eye or the shape of the head, and in that act, in that time when you sort of take that step, you become brave enough to take risks. Because the only way you're going to succeed is to risk doing something you don't know how to do.
Right.
If you keep doing the same thing and approaching it the same way, always, you don't really evolve. It becomes a cliche. It becomes an icon that you can emulate and just throw out there. Like, some people like to paint eyes, and some people like to paint body parts, and and cars and horses, or the backs of women, or whatever they paint. Right. And they do it, and they do it, and they do it,
and they do it well.
And there's nothing wrong with doing that, but taking the risk is stepping outside of that,
being uncomfortable.
And the word risk means that you risk failing. Right. If you are succeeding each and every single time, you're not risking anything.
Right.
And if you're not risking anything, you're not evolving. It just doesn't happen. So what was it you wanted that? Where were we? Let me have a sip of my coffee here.
Have some coffee.
Have some coffee. Mm.
Well, okay. I don't. Well, we were talking about portraits, and you were talking about the lady on the bus that you were trying to become in that moment. Okay, but let's. I mean, we got into a whole nother tangent here
Right.
that I was not expecting.
No, I'll take you somewhere else. I'm really good at that.
All right, and just because people will want to know, they want to know about your education.
Mm.
You know, so talk about getting to. I mean, college and learning how to do this and how did you get there? I mean, how many different avenues did you take? I mean, I know that you not only are you a painter, but I mean, you're willing to try out stuff. You've worked in glass, you've collaborated with Heather, and you guys have done metal and glass pieces. You've done all kinds of stuff. I'm hoping to interview Heather in the next couple of weeks,
that
which
would
I'm
be
excited
great.
about. But in any case, I mean, how did you get there? I mean, is it just curiosity? What led to what?
Well, I was thinking about this morning, so I'm going to take you on a little trip here.
Okay,
You know,
I'm ready.
I went to CSUN. They wouldn't let me change my major. They
CSUN is a college. It's
Cal
California
State University of
of
Northridge. It used to be San Fernando Valley State College. It changed while I was there. And the Chicano Studies Department, we were under EOP. The only way I could get funding was I had to be a Chicano Studies major.
What's EOP?
Educational Opportunity Program.
Okay.
And that was back in the day when that's how you got your funding. So San Fernando CSUN was set up in such a way that if you didn't major in art, you couldn't take an art class. Yeah. And I was trying to take an art class.
And what was your major?
Chicano Studies.
Oh, right. Okay. Sorry.
And so I went to them and I said, I want to change my major. And they said, we'll cut your funding. I was like, what? You know, so it didn't work for me. And I could have, I think I could have worked it out more. I could have double majored. I could have had a better conversation, but I wasn't exactly communicative in those days. You know, I was kind of an angry person, I think, and belligerent. And I didn't want to do anything anybody wanted to say. I don't know if that's like endemic to being an artist. Like, it's like, I'm not going to do anything anybody says. I'm not going to do it any way they tell me to do it. It was just, you know, I just wanted to discover the wheel all by myself, you know. And
fair.
And that was my attitude back then. And today, if I was on the other end of that, I would be saying, go out and do it all while you still know it all, you know. And so, you know, I was still trying to know it all, right? So, but I got married. It was a terrible marriage. And
was this while you were in college?
No, I left. I started working in a bank. I got
okay,
married.
So you didn't, nothing happened with CSUN. It just all fell apart.
Correct. I mean, I had drawing lessons when I was in high school because Roberto Chavez over at ELAC allowed me to audit his classes, and I would come over.
Hold on, ELAC, East
LA College.
Los Angeles College. It's
right.
A community college,
right?
Very near here.
Mm-hmm.
I have to decipher because there's people. They're all over the country. They have no idea what we're talking about.
So you know, I went over there and I would show up. I was, I think, 16, 17, and he had live models. They didn't have that in high school.
No.
And he gave me some drawing lessons, and I got drawing lessons from him. And then I found this illustrator in this other workshop, Hugh Baker, who was an illustrator for NBC. And I used to model for them, and in exchange, my sweat equity was drawing lessons, because I didn't have a formal orthodox way of going to school. I just wanted to know how to draw. And I had it in me to say at that time, I don't care if I can't make a living at this. I don't care because everybody says, oh, I want to be an artist and I want to be famous. And, you know, it's like, that's like putting the cart before the horse. Because if you want to be famous for what? Like, for what?
Well, these days,
You're right.
it's all different.
Right. So like for me, it was like, I want to know how to draw. I want to know how to paint. I wanted specific skills. That's what I wanted. And I had certain artists that I felt I loved the work. And the very first artist that I ever fell in love with in terms of the work was Degas. I remember opening a book as a child and seeing one of the bathers painted in pastel, and I was in awe. I mean, I had seen works by Rembrandt and Vermeer and all the classical Goya, Velasquez, all those, because my grandmother had art books and I looked at those books. But when I opened up that page, it was one of those things where I went, oh, the color. It was the color. And
which is interesting because I mean, when I think about you and your work, I mean, that is the first thing that always comes to me. Your use of color, because you're such a colorist.
Right. And then, and of course, all the Impressionists. I loved all of them, Gauguin, Lautrec, But then I want to say I became aware of the work by Alexei Jawlensky, who did these amazing portraits, and they had some over at the Norton Simon in Pasadena. And I saw that, and they haunted me. I'm skipping around a little bit, but I broke up with my husband. And I took up painting with a group out of Art Center.
Art Center College of Design. It's a school in Pasadena. They're known for especially producing illustrators and people that actually design cars. It's a big deal.
Yeah. Right. But, I'm trying to think of the name of the teacher. There was a teacher there, and I never met him. But I met his students. And years later, I would get an award from his foundation for the work that I did.
That is so great, full circle, right?
It was such a full circle.
I mean, you worked with the students, but you never met the artist. And then later you get an award from the artist foundation or from the artist himself.
Yes.
And you had never met him.
Red will tell me he has these things written down for me. And then so I would draw with them, and it was just a regular thing that I did every Tuesday, every Wednesday. I could only do it every once or twice a week. I couldn't go to school full time. I had taken my portfolio to Otis Parsons School of Art and Design over on Parkview, and it was on Wilshire back then. And they said, oh, sure, yeah, you can come here, but do you have any money? Because there were no scholarships for people like myself. And, being a Chicana, coming from a very blue-collar community, people, they say to themselves, I've suffered, I've gone through all this, I've, trying to put my kid ahead, and I want them to go to college. I don't want them to become a starving artist, So there aren't grants for those, for that. And not that my father would ever have discouraged me, because my father always said, you can be anything you want to be. You want to be an artist, I believe in you, you can do it. Not so with my mom, but my dad for sure, and my grandmother. But I actually didn't even think about that. I didn't worry about what they thought or what they didn't think. It was what I wanted. So it didn't matter.
Based on what you told me earlier, that you were going to do it your own way, it was your way or the highway. I mean, this all makes sense.
Yeah, that's why I said, I really didn't worry about what my family thought about that. because you know what? When you think of support, right? They didn't have the money to support me anyway, so how would it matter?
Right.
Support me or don't support me. And I remember my grandmother calling me and saying something about she didn't like the way I was living my life and she didn't like that. And I said, Grandma, I pay my rent, I pay the food, and at the time I was taking care of my brother and my brother was living with me, so I was supporting my brother and I was supporting myself. And I said, I don't need your advice. Thank you very much. And she says, that's right. You tell them. And that was her response.
She just changed her
She
tune.
just totally flipped around. She said, that's right. You go ahead and tell everybody. You go ahead and do it yourself, because she supported, I think she supported the idea of me making my own mistakes.
Well,
That's really what it is.
and yeah, that's good. All right, so you're taking these drawing classes. You're exploring how to.
There weren't drawing classes.
You were sitting in with a bunch of artists and sort of drawing with them and learning vicariously through them.
Yeah.
While they were working, you were working.
Well, so Don Ward, who invited me to join this group, and he had plans. He says, I want somebody who's not afraid of modeling. And he met me because I was modeling, I think, for Vern Wilson. I think he's gone now, and a few other teachers. And he said, Margaret's not afraid of taking off her clothes.
I was just going to ask you, is this nude modeling?
Yes.
La la?
Yes.
Okay.
So he wanted someone who was willing to do that, but he said to me, you can come and you can join our group, but don't expect me to give you any lessons. I'm not giving anybody any lessons. You come and you just keep doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it. I said, okay. And I'd look around the room and go, oh, look, she's using this or he's doing it. You know,
I'm going to do that too.
Yeah, I'll do that too. Yeah. You know, I'll take anything I can from anybody I can. And, you know, that being said, I took it upon myself to learn anything that was artsy. You know, I got a job with a puppet and marionette company, and I was a seamstress for a while. So I did that, and I learned how to make masks. I learned how to make puppets. I learned how to make costumes and do that. So if it was a creative job like that, even though it didn't pay anything, I was willing to take it if it meant I could learn something.
That is really forward thinking. You know, I mean, when you're curious, you're curious.
Well, I wasn't going to make very much anyway, and I found out I wasn't really good at the bank. You know, I wasn't good at being a file clerk. I wasn't good at being a waitress. I mean, there's just things I don't have the personality for.
I'm trying to imagine you as a waitress.
Oh, that was a disaster. No, that was awful.
What? You want more coffee? No, you've had enough. I don't think you really said that, but I can imagine. Oh, maybe you did.
No, I just wasn't as mindful because like if you're not in the right job, doing the right skill, you know what happens is that you escape to some place where you feel like you're comfortable, because everybody wants to be comfortable and in a place that they belong. So if you're doing a job that you're not meant to do, you find you're going to be escaping. So you need to take on a job where you're present. Someone asked me, what was the skill? What was the thing that was the most important aspect about being an artist? And I remember thinking, and I still think, being present.
Right.
You need to be present.
Yeah.
And you need to be there with what it is you're doing. It's not about chiaroscuro or this color or that line. I mean, those things are great. If you have a giant bag of tricks and you learn a little bit from here and a little bit from there, and you take everything that you can get and make it your own, but you have to stay present, and you have to stay present with your subject. So that, for me, was the biggest skill ability that you could have.
Would you say that being present actually translates into just being you? I mean, so completely,
Right.
you know, that you are just you, you're comfortable with who you are, and you're here.
Mm-hmm. And that's why it's such a spiritual quest.
It's a big task for a
It
lot of people,
is.
you know, be
Mm-hmm.
actually embracing that.
Yeah, people have to be in the moment. They have to be present, and they have to be able to not escape. Like if you're doing something you really hate, I don't know, digging ditches, paving, or maybe you like it.
Right. Something you don't like.
Some people like it.
Yeah.
Some people like digging ditches. There's nothing wrong with digging ditches. But some people don't like whatever it is they're doing, and they're always somewhere else thinking about the future or thinking about the past. They're not present. They're not available. And so you're not available to those aspects of yourself that need to stay present to truly express something authentic about this relationship, this moment, this portrait, this connection, this social interaction that we are having right now. You're not there to feel the sunshine, the rain, or anything else. It's oblivious. I just want to do a portrait that looks realistic. Here, let me take and so you have to take chances, and you have to be present. You have to suit up and show up. Okay.
All right.
All right.
Okay. No, that's okay.
We'll back up. I'm sorry. Where was I?
It's all right.
Did I have a creative childhood?
That was a long time ago. Let's forget about that.
Oh, okay.
All right. Let's go back.
Okay.
We're gonna go to something else.
All right.
So all right. How did you finally cross over? So you're learning how to do this work, right? And you're doing it. I mean, at some point, are you accumulating things? To be an artist is to hoard in some way, shape, or form, right? I mean, whether it's supplies, which we talk about a lot on this group,
Yeah.
Or, I mean, just paintings that you've done, work that you've done, other people's work that you love. But I mean, how did you finally cross over? I mean, did you have like an arsenal of work that you're finally like, I got to get rid of some of this?
No.
Or were people just coming to you intermittently and saying, you know what, I really like that and I want to buy it?
No.
How did that happen?
I ran into an elementary school friend that I had gone to literally first grade, second grade, I don't know. We went through elementary school together, and I ran into him, and I said, "Oh, hi, Carlos. What are you doing these days?" And he says, "I'm doing murals." I said, "Oh, I would love to do a mural." He said, "Oh, go talk to Glenna Avila. She's the director of the citywide mural program." She was his girlfriend too. And I said, "Oh, okay,
convenient,
cool." He says, "Take her your portfolio." So I took her my portfolio, and
your portfolio consisted of, was it just like a bunch of drawings that you had done, that the ones that you really liked, that you thought portrayed your work well?
I had the stuff that I had done in that group from Art Center School of Design, like with my friends. But so in that group was a gentleman by the name of Don Ward, and Don Ward was the supervisor for the billboards at Tower Records and at Peaches back then, when they had LPs and
I don't
vinyl.
know what Peaches is, but okay.
Peaches was a record company, and Tower Records,
I remember Tower Records.
And what they used to do back in the day is they would take an album cover, a square, and it was 4 feet by 4 feet. They would project it. Now this is back in the 70s, okay? So
I was born. I was there.
Okay, but the thing is, they would project it, and they would paint it in oil paint.
So you were painting while the projection was up?
No, so he he was working there as a supervisor, and I was learning all this stuff. And as I said, I would take any kind of creative job. And I started saying, "Hey, Don, how do you get a job there? How do you?" He says, "You have to put a portfolio together." So I started putting together a portfolio that showed that I could reproduce a photograph.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it was, it's not my favorite thing in the world to do but one of the things that he said, this is not the race. This is not the marathon. This is not the thing but if you're painting every single day, you really hone your chops and you get really good at it. Think of it as your daily jog for
Right.
that final piece. And I thought, okay, I can do that. And so I did put a portfolio together. I don't think any of that exists today, but I put a portfolio together and I went to Glenna and I said, I'd like to do a mural. And she gave me one, and I decided to share it with Randy Giraldi, and he was really good at drawing, and he had a lot of scuba diving experience. And
That's random, but okay.
well, no, it's not random. What happened is that the murals that they commissioned had to be murals that were concerned with social issues.
Okay.
Okay, and the social issue that he and I agreed upon was the killing of the blue whales.
Okay.
Okay, and we were concerned that everything was getting overfished and all this cetacea. We were really interested in the blue whales, so we did 2 blue whales on the corner of Beethoven and Venice.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and that ended up in a movie by Agnes Varda called Murmurs. In fact, it was used for the advertisement of that movie, and it got an award at the Cannes Film Festival.
Things aren't things funny? I mean, just as an aside, I mean, one thing leads to another. You just don't know where it's going to go. You can't imagine where
I
it's
wasn't
going to
in
go.
town when that happened either.
That's
I had
crazy.
gone to Chicago. I wasn't around to bathe in the glory of my success. It just wasn't there. I had gone, okay, this is where my story gets a little dark, okay. I went to Chicago to run and hide from my ex. And I took my daughter with me, which I didn't have the legal right to do. So it's called child snatching. And I went out there and I lived underground for 3 years.
Oh my God.
And
That's such a long time.
Yeah, but I took on, I learned how to do art restoration. I taught doll making, mask making. I just did everything
Just
and
whatever
anything,
you could, whatever.
whatever could come my way. And I was found and extradited, brought back to LA. My daughter was taken from me. She was 7. I was homeless.
I'm sorry.
I was transient. I went through all of that. And I went to, I met up with an old friend who was a family counselor. And I was really kind of desperate, upset, just a wet rag. I was a wet blanket. I was just a mess. And he said to me, listen, I understand all this stuff happened to you and you don't deserve it, but this is not the time for you to fall apart. You need to get out there and you need to fight and you need to get on your feet. You cannot afford the luxury of sitting on the pity potty.
Harsh words, but yes, okay.
He gave me $10 and paid for the coffee we were drinking. I didn't even know where I was going to spend the night that night. But he was right. And it was that. So I went from that. When I landed in LA, I had the good fortune of running back into Glenna Avila, and I ended up working at the photo center, curating shows. I just about lived there. If I couldn't live anywhere else, I was staying at the photo center, and I learned how to develop photographs and develop film, and I curated the Day of the Dead from self-help graphics. I got into the print program. I did um, they're called the Wild Bitch. I did the Red Bitch. It's in the collection at LACMA now. But by
LA County Museum of Art, LACMA.
right, and then by
LACMA.
by 1987, I came back in 83, and by 87 I had regained custody of my daughter, total and complete.
So when you came back, when they extradited you, they just took her from you, and she went to him?
She went to him, and then, the school reported him for child abuse. And there was a whole bunch of other things. We ended up going through the crime victim treatment program, and, it was a road. And the art was an outlet. And it was the only thing I felt that I was good at. It was the only thing I felt that I was good at, and it was the only thing that I could do where I could stay present.
Right.
Like any other job was. The thing about doing art, working at the photo center, doing all of those things, is that there's a healing aspect to it. And I ended up getting a residency, California Arts Council residency, working at Self-Help Graphics first, and then I moved to working at the prison. And in working at the prison and working with these different populations, I worked with student age, parent, infant development program at Santa Monica High School. I worked in the prison and with different groups.
Was it a male prison or a female prison?
Both.
Both.
I did both. And what I found that in the process of trying to provide a path to, I want to say, self-discovery for these people, or a form of expression, that it also helped provide me with a way to evolve. I was kind of accepted into the Chicano art community. But the art community, and I don't care if it's Chicano or African American or Asian or whatever, every community has its sort of little cliques,
Sure. Yeah, people do this.
He's not doing this, she's not doing that.
Right. There's still chisme.
There's
gossip.
lots of chisme and lots of that. And I looked for ways to spiritually evolve, help myself, and I incorporated each and everything that I did within the process of self-healing and invested it in my art. I mean, if you're not getting down to that part of yourself where you're being authentic, I mean, there's a lot of contemporary trends in art, and everybody wants to be relevant, right? We want our work to be relevant. But sometimes we overthink it, and we're not being honest about who we are, and we're too invested in this idea of innovation instead of being, I feel, more invested in authentic voice. You know, I have no issue with experimentation and trying new things. There, whatever rule you come up with in the art world, there's a way to break it. You know, it's just totally, but it's about being your true self, being present, and saying something that truly represents, you know, not just where your mind is on a conceptual level, but where your heart is, where your spirit is, you know. And I always say, you know, my work is not conceptual.
Right.
It's totally emotive. You know, it's like it's sort of created by the heart and nurtured by the mind. It isn't mindless. It isn't without concept.
No. Your work is definitely feeling.
Yeah, and
In the biggest sense of the word. I never look at your work and have to, and I'm going to choose my words carefully here, I guess. I don't have to decipher your work. I don't have to say, well, what is she really saying here? I never have to do that with your work. And not that there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing good with it. It's nothing. It's just a way to be. But you know, there's some people that do their work and they're like, this means this and this means this, and here's a secret meaning and here, and this is the way their mind works, and that's fine. But that's not what I connect with.
No,
necessarily.
I actually like it when you provide me, I want to say, a narrative, an image that embodies a mystery, where the audience can look at the painting or the drawing and bring their own story to it, and tell their story through that painting, even though that may have or may not have been what was intended.
Right.
But the thing is, if you look at a painting, and just with simple things like composition, where, say, you draw a still life, and there's the platter, and you place the platter within the framework of your image, but the edge is not in. Or there's an orange and you just see part of the orange, and the rest of it goes outside the framework of the image. The person viewing that image completes the image within their mind because they see it, and they cannot see it without completing it.
Right.
Because it's like, you know, they want to put a period at the end of that sentence. That simple act of participation on the part of the viewer makes the image memorable to them because they participated in that image. And that mystery, that sense of like there's something hidden back there, it's not all in view. You don't just paint a person and provide everything from head to toe, you know, and know it's there. Your light went out.
Oh, that's because it got too hot. It's okay.
Nah.
That's fine.
So I always say, you know, it's nice to leave a little bit of question in there.
Yeah, let everybody put their own spin on it.
Yeah, I think that's important. Well, you know, and I think, you know, every teacher has something else to offer. I always encourage, you know, people, find as many artists and influences that you can get, and that you can have, and take the best part of what you like about them, and don't feel dogmatic or be a purist about the way they taught you and you have to do it this way or you have to do it that way. You have to make whatever it is that you learn your own. You know, I wasn't fortunate enough to go to art school, undergraduate art school. But by, I think, 1992, was it 92? No, 1990, I was able to approach USC with my portfolio, and the faculty voted unanimously to let me into their graduate program, where I went to graduate school.
And you did not have a graduate degree?
No, I still don't.
I mean, a BA.
No.
Okay.
No,
So you were, wait a minute. So you didn't have a BA, but they let you into the master's program?
yeah.
Wow.
But what happened was, I needed to finish the thesis. I went there for 2 years. I did my credits and all that. But what happened is that when I came out, before I got to the point of doing the thesis, I was getting ready to do a thesis. What happened was that I had applied for a commission doing a metro station at Universal Metro Station.
I just want to point out, Art's watching us.
Who?
Art Korea.
Oh, hi. So I applied for that, and that was a huge commission. That was like one of the most important commissions I could get. I mean, that thing's going to be around for 200 years. I figure, hey, that's super important. And I could go for the degree and go and try and teach and do all of that and be in debt and not necessarily have any promise of anything. But a commission of a metro station is a major plum, feather in my cap. It's going to be there when I'm dead. And I say, I'm doing that. And between doing that and writing a thesis, I chose to do the commission. So I never completed the master's. But I went there and I did go to graduate school. I just didn't.
Do you ever think about going back and just finishing it up, writing your thesis and getting it over with?
It's been so long ago. I don't know what
good it would do.
I don't know what good it would do. I've been writing, and I feel that it's interesting because I think that writing a thesis now would not be so problematic. I think that I could fairly do it easily, but it's not something that I worry about because at 70, I have no desire to go out and find a job. So why would I bother? Like
maybe just as an exercise to yourself, as an act of completion. Sometimes I talk about this a lot because I know a lot of people that start things and don't finish things. And and that's a way to do it, I guess. But sometimes just the act of finishing it, whether or not you think you're going to use whatever is supposed to be the outcome, it becomes its own thing. It's like you're telling the universe, I can finish this, even if I'm not going to use it. I can finish this. I'm not saying that this is your problem, but
right now it's not my problem because I have prioritized some other project in my head right now. I finally got a solo museum exhibit. That was a major accomplishment for me.
Yes, congratulations.
And then I really worked on the catalog, and I love my catalog.
Oh,
you haven't seen the catalog?
No. Wait a minute. The one that was at the museum?
Yeah,
we have one.
Yeah.
And
and I really worked on the writing for that, and I had other people. And now I'm looking at the idea of putting together a more comprehensive book on my past art, and not just my past art, but some of the concepts and some of the things that I've put together and some of the projects that I've done. I've done creating cultural currency, stamp project, prayer exhibit. I did the border game. I created a board game on what it's like to get across the border. I did an installation at UC San Diego and Calexico where, we created an installation and we actually had real border guards come and play the game.
Wow.
And we created a prison and, people would take a card, like a Monopoly game, only it was how to get across the border.
Wow.
And get your papers. And that was a long time ago. And I'd like to sort of just document all these things because at 70, you're not thinking about trying to go out and find a job.
Right.
I don't care about that right now.
Okay, you never answered the question though about how you crossed over. When did somebody say to you, I want to buy some of your work?
The first piece I ever sold was in high school.
It's a long time ago.
Yeah, the very first piece I ever did. I did an embossment on white paper, and it was an image that I called the apple of my eye. And I've revisited that image in the stamp project. And
I have to save a dog.
you save a dog.
Izzy, what are you doing?
She loves getting tangled
There.
in
All right.
cables. And I sold that, I think I was in 11th grade, and someone bought it. It was a little embossment that someone bought. It was during, my teacher was Mrs. Neutra, who is married to the famous architect's son. She was the daughter-in-law to Neutra. And it was during a period of time she was into printmaking and making embossments and things like that. And we were exposed to the work of Sister Coretta. Sister Coretta.
Sister Coretta, I can't remember her last name.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
I want to say King, but it's not King.
No.
But she did these anti-war posters that were, war is not healthy for children and other living things. And so I did the apple of my eye, which was this image of an eye with a peace symbol and a dove inside of it.
Oh.
And so I used that to revive my stamp project.
Do you remember how much you sold that piece?
$5.
That's good.
Well, for it
was a lot.
1968. Like $5. I'm like, yes, So yeah, that made me really, really happy. That was the very, very first piece that I ever made. And when I showed up in '83, and I was doing the Day of the Dead over at the photo center, Frank Romero asked me if I wanted to take part in a Christmas sale in his studio over on Kellum in Angelino Heights, part of Echo Park. And I said, oh, sure. But I didn't take it very seriously.
Did you have work to sell?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I could.
You're right. You had stuff in the coffers, so to speak.
Yeah, and I'm fairly productive. I mean,
you were prolific. I mean, you were super prolific.
So I did that, and Nancy, his wife, was like, "No, you gotta." She ran it down. You gotta invite these people, and you gotta do this, and I was like, yeah. But I didn't take it seriously. I really didn't. I showed up. I thought, oh, this is just for fun. We're gonna show this work, and I made $200. This is back in '85, '86, around there. I said, oh, hey, I can make some money. So the following year, I participated and I made $2,000. So it increased exponentially. I said, oh, I really need to pay attention. And I was lucky. And I was going through this period of time when I was trying to regain custody of my daughter at the time. Mm-hmm. So it made a huge difference in my life, because I was able to raise the money to pay for the lawyer, right. And for that, when I talk about Frank, I'm always eternally grateful, because he can be a little arrogant.
I've never met him.
Oh,
I know about him, but I've never met him.
But he has a very generous spirit, and he's very accessible. There's he wants to be the geeky guy or the weirdo or whatever, but he has a very generous spirit. And he hasn't just been generous with me. I mean, he's been generous with a lot of people. And he opened that door for me and allowed me to make a living. Now, people can open doors for you. That doesn't mean it's going to stay open. It's up to you to keep that door open. And it's up to you to do the work to make that happen. I've been in galleries, in and out, different places and stuff like that. But I have, always come up with these projects to try and navigate my way into paying the rent or paying the bills or whatever, The stamp project came about because I was frustrated with self-help graphics and the printer there. I wasn't being able to get in there to print. And like some of the work that I was selling at the Christmas sale was prints, and I couldn't get in there and I couldn't print. So I created this program and this process, and within 3 months, I think we did like 10 or 11 runs, and we had over 80 to 90 artists that participated. Wow. And they made their prints, and now it's I had Magoo in there, and I had Frank, and well, I knew a lot of artists, so it's a question of just sort of corralling that energy and saying, hey, we don't need a nonprofit. We don't need a grant. We'll do it ourselves and make it run. And that's what I did. So I called it creating cultural currency. And the curation of that project is basically, you got the money, you can pay for your spot, you're going to invest in your work. 8 people on a sheet, everybody paid for 7 people paid for the spot, and 1 person got sweat equity.
Right. I remember you talking about this. Can you tell people, can you run this down just a little bit so they understand what you're talking about here, what you actually did?
Okay, so I saw the History Channel, and they were investigating this little black and white stamp that was produced by the International Workers Union or the Communist Party, I'm not sure. And the stamp cost a penny that the people in the union paid for, and that penny went for the defense fund of the Greensboro 7. I believe there were 7 black men that were accused of raping 2 white women, and this went for their defense fund.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and I said, the problem with us, because I think this was when Obama had just taken office. I says, we need our own stimulus, our own stimulus program, And so I said, so if I can get 8 people together on this one sheet of paper, I had a master printer who could print it. It would cost each person, each of the 7 people, $125 to print 50 prints. And after they sold 5 prints, because they were selling them at $25, they made their money back. So it was like printing your own money. Mm-hmm. You're printing $25 bills.
Right. But so you had 7 people, and then 1 person was present actually.
Well, there needs to be 1 person who puts in sweat equity, because it takes an organized person who can get the images ready for the screen. Everything's black and white, so there's no colors. Nobody's fighting, I need yellow, blue, or green, or whatever. It's black. Mm-hmm. That's it. That's the color. And, some people would give you an image, and the image wasn't ready because it wasn't sized right, or there wasn't enough contrast, or it was too pixelated. And so there has to be 1 person who can get the work ready for the master printer. So 1 position of sweat equity, 7 people paying $125 each. After the sale of 5 pieces, you've basically made your money back.
Right.
And so...
But it also meant that the person that was doing the sweat equity, that person still got to have their work in there as well, but you didn't have to pay because you were the person that actually was overseeing the work,
right?
The manufacturing of the documents.
But more importantly, because I got my friend Grace Barraza in Corpus Christi, she did a run, and the nice thing about that is she did the same thing and took the position of the sweat equity, because it can be done by anybody. You don't have to be a nonprofit. You don't have to belong to any group. Anybody can do it. And that was the concept that was the most important aspect of it. The other aspect of curation, from my point of view, was that I really don't want to hear what you're against. I get that you're against the war, The peace should not be about being against the war. It should be about being in favor of peace. It's about your cultural contribution. It's about what you bring to the table as a cultural person.
Was
And
that
there
a
were,
stipulation that people had to meet
that was
coming
my,
in?
yeah, you know, like if it's to this or to that, I'm not the cultural police. You know, I'm not
Yeah.
there to make aesthetic judgments about your work. You're willing to pay $125. You're willing to invest in your work and,
Right.
and
You
put
get
it
to
out there.
put whatever you want.
You
Yeah.
you bought that piece of real estate, and that was the way I did. Uh, Now, you know, honestly, if it was something where somebody was trying to say, I want to vote for Trump or I love Hitler or something like that, well, you know, obviously I'm not going to let those people in because uh, go make your own.
It was too far outside of your scope of comfort.
Yeah, well,
Well, not comfort,
more than
belief.
that,
Yeah.
I don't embrace negativity. So if you want to do something negative, go do it with your negative friends. Don't do it here with me. That's all. You know, it's like, so it's about creating cultural currency. The idea is that you're basically printing your own currency, your own
Right.
money, and you're acknowledging the value of your currency, of what you are bringing to the table as a cultural ambassador or agent of your community. I had authors, I had poets, and they were also able to make stamps.
That's great. That's such a great idea. So community, oriented.
Yeah, because you know you don't have to just stick to visual artists. Visual artists are part of it, but the you know, there are other people who can embrace the concept and support each other in it. And you're creating your own currency, your own Bitcoin,
Bitcoin.
or whatever. I don't know too much about Bitcoin, but yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we've been going for a long time, I think. I don't even know what
Are
time.
you tired?
I'm not tired, but I know that, yeah, oh yeah, we've been going over an hour now. Okay. Well, people are watching, and so they're probably like, okay.
How many people are watching?
Well, right now we're down to 2.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Art's here, and Kelly's here.
I don't know Kelly.
No, but she's a member of the group.
Kathy Abram.
Oh no, Kathy. I'm sorry.
Kathy
Did I say
Abramowitz?
Kelly?
Yeah.
Kathy. Sorry. Anyway, they're watching. Thank you. Thank you for watching.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for doing this.
My pleasure. Are you kidding? All right. I'm going to give you like 2 sentences that you want to leave on.
God, I'm very happy and it's a great place. I mean, to be right now.
I like it.
Yeah, I like where I'm at. I really like where I'm at. And I like the people that I've surrounded myself with. You can't get there alone. You have to take your posse with you. You have to take your crew. You have to create community.
Yeah.
You have to create tribe in order to be able to get anywhere with your work. To make the work that matters, you have to be a member of a community to do it. I think it's almost impossible to be alone out there. And if your audience isn't alive and present right now, there will be an audience for it. I mean, you're always creating work with the idea of communicating with someone. You can't be in a vacuum or in a bubble.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. I think those are beautiful sentiments to part on. And thank you.
Thank you
for being here. Thank you for staying, you lovely people. Hope this was of value to you, and we will talk soon. This will get posted, and anything, if you have any links or stuff, I'll get that from you and we'll post them in there.
Links. Okay.
Links, website, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, okay.
All that sort of thing. Okay. Thanks, everybody.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.